hello, everyone out there in Radio Land. It's once again that time of the week. What time of the week is it? Well, it's that time of the week where we dig underneath the headlines. We talk about what's really going on. We cut through the propaganda of the mainstream media and cut to that straight-up truth. And generally call out the establishment on its BS. This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program. As always, the following thoughts, views, and opinions are not necessarily those of 89.1 FM WIDR Kalamazoo or Western Michigan University. Well, it was the best of times and it was the worst of times, because today's episode is a grab bag of some very good news and some very tragic news. At the local and national level, as a matter of fact. We're going to be talking about it later on in the program, but I did want to make sure I at least started out by mentioning we have very dear member of our community no longer with us. Shakita Lewis, who was an organizer and advocate for her friends and neighbors, particularly up in the north side, was murdered over the weekend. And we want to give our sincerest condolences to all of her friends and family and everybody who's worked with her over the years. And we will be talking more about her later on in the program. I wanted to start out by talking about a story coming out of Washington. Some of y'all may have heard of it, some of y'all may not have, but for those of you who were not hip to this, this is about an individual named Will Van Spronsen. Will Van Spronsen was an anarchist who was murdered while trying to sabotage some vehicles owned by Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Now, I'm going to read a little bit of the actual context here. I actually followed a couple of places. What I want to do with this is, again, I want to explain the context of what happened, and then it's possible they may have been trans, so please strike that Mr. from the record. But Will Van Spronsen left a final note, and I'm going to be reading from that, but I do also think it's important for the listeners out there who maybe didn't hear about this story to give you some context. So this is a statement that was released by La Resistencia. Hopefully I didn't slaughter that too much with my white tongue, but anyway, this is an immigration rights and undocumented led movement and group out of Washington State that particularly aims its activism towards the Northwest Detention Center in Tacoma, Washington, where this incident happened. So I'm going to go ahead and read a bit from the statement that they released. And this was when it happened, which was July 13th. Early this morning, a person who appears to have been engaged in protest against the Northwest Detention Center in Tacoma was shot and killed by members of the Tacoma Police Department. Today marks yet another death linked to the detention center and another death at the hands of the police. Based on available information, including the police scanner recording, William Van Spronsen, the protester killed, appears to have been targeting not the detention center itself, as has been widely reported in the media, but the parking lot across the street from the detention center, which houses the NWDC's transportation infrastructure. This infrastructure includes a fleet of buses that transports immigrants to be caged at the detention center, and that transports immigrants from the detention center to the Yakima airport, from which they are deported. Mr. Van Spronsen was apparently trying to set the deportation buses on fire when he was shot and killed. His actions sadly reflect the level of desperation people across this country feel about the government's outrageous violence against immigrants, which includes the use of detention centers to cage migrants both currently living in the U.S. and those seeking asylum. This death results from the federal government's unresponsiveness to the anger and despair people feel at the horrors unfolding both at the border and in the interior, and from the inability of officers to de-escalate rather than shooting to kill. But for the city of Tacoma, allowing the GEO Group's facility to be built and expanded to Tacoma, this death and the death and suffering of those inside the detention center would have been avoided. The NWDC has become a liability, not just for the tens of thousands who have been caged there, but for the city of Tacoma itself. It's past time for the city of Tacoma to cancel GEO's business license. It's clear that this quote-unquote business is a deadly one and has only brought pain and suffering to our region. And just so you know, GEO Group, again, they are one of the big players that profits the most off of our detention camp infrastructure. They're the ones profiting off of all this, one of the groups, I should say, profiting off of all of this human misery. And from there, I want to go ahead and just read the words of Willem Van Spronsen himself. And this is what they had to say. There's wrong and there's right. It's time to take action against the forces of evil. Evil says one life is worth less than another. Evil says the flow of commerce is our purpose here. Evil says concentration camps for folks deemed lesser are necessary. The handmaid of evil says the concentration camps should be more humane. Beware the centrist. I have a father's broken heart. I have a broken down body. And I have an unshakable abhorrence for injustice. That is what brings me here. This is my clear opportunity to try and make a difference. I'd be an ingrate to be waiting for a more obvious invitation. I follow 3 teachers. Don Pritz, my spiritual guide. Love without action is just a word. John Brown, my moral guide. What is needed is action. Emma Goldman, my political guide. If I can't dance, I don't want to be in your revolution. I'm a head in the clouds dreamer. I believe in love and redemption. I believe we're going to win. I'm joyfully revolutionary. And then, in parentheses, Willem wrote, we all should have been reading Emma Goldman in school instead of the jingo drivel we were fed, but I digress. We should all be looking at the photos of the YPG heroes should we falter and think our dreams are impossible, but I double digress. Fight me. In these days of fascist hooligans preying on vulnerable people in our streets, in the name of the state or supported and defended by the state, in these days of highly profitable detention, concentration camps, and a battle over the semantics, in these days of hopelessness, empty pursuits, and empty yearning, we are living in visible fascism ascendant. I say visible because those paying attention watched it survive and thrive under the protection of the state for decades. See Howard Zinn's A People's History of the United States. Now unabashedly follows its agenda with open and full cooperation from the government, from governments around the world. Fascism serves the needs of the state, serves the needs of business, and at your expense. Who benefits? Jeff Bezos, Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, Tim Cook, Bill Gates, Betsy DeVos, George Soros, Donald Trump, and need I go on? Let me say it again. Rich guys who think they're not really all that good really dig government every government anywhere, including quote-unquote communist governments, because they make the rules that make the rich guys richer. Simple. Don't overthink it. Are you patriots in the back paying attention? When I was a boy in post-war Holland, later France, my head was filled with stories of the rise of fascism in the 30s. I promised myself that I would not be one of those who stands by as neighbors are torn from their homes and imprisoned for somehow being perceived as lesser. You don't have to burn the mother effer down, but are you going to just stand by? Give me just a sec. I'm back. So our co-host just joined us. I'm going to go ahead and finish reading this statement, and then we will move on to other topics. But I wanted to make sure we gave Willem his proper due. Again, you know, okay. Well, I'll editorialize after I get done reading it. This is a test of our fundamental belief in real freedom and our responsibility to each other. This is a call to patriots, too, to stand against this travesty against everything that you hold sacred. I know you. I know that in your hearts you see the dishonor in these camps. It's time for you, too, to stand up to the money pulling the strings of every damn puppet pretending to represent us. I am a man who loves you all and this spinning ball so much that I'm going to fulfill my childhood promise to myself to be noble. Here it is, in these corporate for-profit concentration camps. Here it is, in brown and non-conforming folks afraid to show their faces for fear of the police. Migra, Proud Boys, The Boss, Becky's. Here it is, a planet almost used up by the market's greed. I'm a black and white thinker. Detention camps are an abomination. I'm not standing by. I really shouldn't have to say any more than this. I set aside my broken heart and I heal the only way I know how, by being useful. I efficiently compartmentalize my pain, and I joyfully go about this work. To those burdened with the wreckage from my actions, I hope that you will make the best use of that burden. To my comrades, I regret that I will miss the rest of the revolution. Thank you for the honor of having me in your midst. Give me space to be useful, to feel that I was fulfilling my ideals has been the spiritual pinnacle of my life. Doing what I can to help defend my precious and wondrous people is an experience too rich to describe. My trans comrades have transformed me, solidifying my conviction that we will be guided to a dreamed-of future by those most marginalized among us today. I have dreamed it so clearly that I have no regret for seeing how it turns out. Thank you for bringing me so far along. I am Antifa. I stand with comrades around the world who act from the love of life in every permutation. Comrades who understand that freedom means real freedom for all and a life worth living. Keep the faith. All power to the people. Bella Ciao, and don't let your silly government agency spend money investigating this one. I was radicalized in civics class at 13 when we were taught about the Electoral College. It was at that point that I decided that the status quo might be a house of cards. Further reading confirmed in the positive. I highly recommend reading. I am not affiliated with any organization. I have disaffiliated from any organizations who disagree with my choice of tactics. The semi-automatic weapon I used was a cheap, home-built, unregistered Ghost AR-15. It had 6 magazines. I strongly encourage comrades and incoming comrades to arm themselves. We are now responsible for defending people from a predatory state. And I'll just leave it there. That kind of echoes the sentiment of a lot of up-and-coming firearms awareness groups like John Brown Gun Club, Socialist Rifle Association. I don't want to really distract too much with that last line, though. One of the things I really wanted to touch on with this story is, what's really sad about this to me. We're in, Lawrence, have you seen that meme going around about Area 51?
I've seen a couple different things. I've seen a couple different things about it.
Well, a lot of people make the point, the underlying point of that is, if we all storm Area 51, they can't stop all of us. However, that's the problem. The action that Willem engaged in, it's something we have to think about a lot ourselves, because there's this thing a friend of mine shared, I think really hit the nail on the head. It isn't necessarily that millennials don't want nothing to lose, or millennials don't have nothing to lose. They do. Climate change, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's more the fear of the carceral state, and the idea if you show up and there aren't enough, if you show up in insufficient numbers, you're either going to get killed or put in prison. And there is that fear, though. It's like, I think about this sometimes myself, is, doing some action like, sabotaging a pipeline or something like that. There is definitely, and especially as the years come through, there's going to be need for that kind of direct action. But there is also that concern, like, how can you be useful to the movement? It's interesting because, like, what Willem wrote, just one last point, and then I'll flip it to you. It reminds me a lot of, like, kind of what was going through my own head when I went to Standing Rock. I was kind of feeling depressed and hopeless about things at the time, and I wanted to be of use. And when I went, I thought, I'll just get arrested in civil disobedience until I have to go back home to Michigan. So the idea is, like, I will just be the one in those dog kennels for like an entire month. That is not actually how it played out. Oddly enough, I got arrested in a lot of places that year for civil disobedience. Not once at Standing Rock, though. But yeah, I want to go ahead. I'll flip it over again. Lawrence, you have some thoughts on this story?
I mean, man, look, I keep it the same all the time, man. It's a tragedy whenever anybody loses their life. We didn't have this conversation before. I don't necessarily agree with Antifa's tactics, even though I do agree with people who fight against fascism. Anti-fascist fights against fascism, and in all of its forms. The detention camps, the concentration camps is fascist by design.
So I just get like one quick point of clarification? So is it the fact that he was talking about having a firearm, or was it the fact that he went there to sabotage some buses?
No. I think that civil disobedience can be the sabotaging of government equipment, like a bus or something like that.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we agreed on that.
Because again, for example, the civil rights movement, when they did civil disobedience, they were just sitting at a lunch counter trying to order food. They were They were riding in buses in the South and towns with people who are literally trying to kill them. So civil disobedience takes many different forms. We had Democracy Spring, where we had the most people be getting arrested at the state capitol in U.S. history.
That was when I by the way, that was a fun fact. That's how I broke my civil disobedience cherry.
No, but at the same time, like, look at the framing that we're gonna talk about. We're going to talk about this person who was an anarchist who had a weapon who was trying to destroy government property. That's how the media is going to flip this. So we're giving people who have a vested interest in keeping the status quo the same. We are giving them ammunition they can use to defame us, to miscategorize and misrepresent our point in our movement, and in doing so, we lose the moral ground for people who are not as informed on said situation. So for me, in my opinion, do I agree with him being like, "Hey, yo," and it also would depend on the tactic. I agree with I am going to encourage people to not do what I'm about to say, which is, taking some scissors and deflating the tires on
you should
buses.
Definitely not do that.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yeah. Deflating two of the tires on the vehicles where they are going to try to detain or try to arrest and deport millions of human beings just because they crossed the border, and we are making that a crime, because they were not born here. And now that is a crime. I feel, again, my sympathy and empathy goes out to this dude and his family, and I understand about being depressed and being angry, but that depression and hopelessness needs to be turned or channeled into the proper way of fighting back. Because I can only imagine what X or Martin or Fannie Lou Haman or even John Lewis when he was being a freedom rider. Yeah. I can only imagine how it felt during the 40s and 50s, trying to fight for change in a country where people were literally trying to kill you because of where you're choosing to sit and get some food. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely my heart goes out to someone who wants to literally do something when you see people locked in concentration camps, and it gives you vibes of Japanese internment camps, or what we did to Native Americans, what we are doing to black people currently. You know what I'm saying? I get that notion wholeheartedly of being like, man, I really want to do something. Well, this is when you have to get around people who are smarter than you and not be a lone ranger, and you have to get with a group and be like, yo, what's the best way that we can tackle this? This is why you need to support people like the Squad, AOC, Ayanna Pressley, and all them, because they're about that life and fixing the problems with what's going on at the concentration camps.
And I would also frame that too. If you're not into the congressional politics and stuff, make sure the big takeaway. And again, I think we're both sympathetic to this individual, but let's be clear. I think the whole, even just having a firearm on him, it makes it all the much easier for we're sympathetic. Every center to right-wing news outlet in the country is basically painting this guy as a far-left terrorist.
But that's the thing. Did he harm anyone?
No.
That's the thing. Was he committing a act of violence based on political or religious means. He did not do so. He wanted to help free people who are literally locked in cages, who are sleeping on concrete. So, like, I believe that the way he went about it was wrong personally. That's me personally. Do I understand how he got there? Yeah.
And also,
wholehearted.
As a practical thing, whatever tactic you're embracing, it's only going to be as successful as how organized it is. And again, it sounds like, this individual, there's some other things that played into it. We've heard reports that he's kind of telling his friends and people close to him that it was almost like a suicide by the fascist police state type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, and that's the thing. Being a martyr is cool. Forgetting the fact that the martyr doesn't survive to see the end of the story. You know what I'm saying? Like, that.
You can even kind of tell that in his
goodbye letter.
Goodbye letter, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the thing, man. Like, look, I understand that people are desperate. I'm all for fighting back. It's in how you fight back that will lead to the best results. You know what I'm saying? Not all. You don't want to, in your quest to purge the world of monsters, become a monster yourself.
And I just want to say, we definitely do not condone sabotaging ICE vehicles or equipment. We do not condone that at all.
Right.
But, I would just say, hypothetically, if something like that were to happen, you should make sure you have like a few, at least like a dozen, maybe 2 dozen people who remember that, and that you're really sneaky about it. But again, don't do it. Don't do that.
Oh my God! We can. I do not want to get flagged for inciting violence. This is not how this works. Look, guys. Look, folks, ladies and gentlemen, cats, dogs, chickens, pigeons, and everything in between. Look, if you want to fight back, there are groups that have asked Bank of America to defund or divest from Geo Group and other private prison groups. Yep. There are groups that have been working on making sure that these places get beds and foods and water. There are multiple organizations. Shout out to Cosecha, because Cosecha is a wonderful. That's a local group in Kalamazoo.
They just had a big win, and they've been on the front lines of dealing with the issues that undocumented folks in Kalamazoo deal with.
Oh yeah, and shout out to No More Deaths, man. Shout out to No More Deaths, and to those other or activist organizations. There are organizations that are about that life and about that work. If you want to put your energy into fighting to fix this problem, then get around these people who's been about that life and been about that work.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Okay, so I think with that, let's go ahead and go to break. Y'all listening to the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo, your only source for political revolution.
This is George W. Bush, and you're listening to 89.1 WIDR, Kalamazoo, Michigan, Kalamazoo. You know what you're listening to, Kalamazoo, Michigan, man. What are you, stupid?
It may not be apparent, but hunger is a rather prominent issue amongst the student body of Western. The Invisible Need Project is a multifaceted initiative that's aimed to help struggling students. Every 2 weeks, generous people donate their food to the pantry located in the Fawn Student Service buildings or other drop-off locations. All you need to do is grab a reusable bag and grab whatever food you need to help sustain yourself. If anyone's unsure when their next meal will be, or if you have a little extra food you'd be willing to donate, the food pantry is your place. If you're looking to help donate, become a volunteer, or just learn more, call 269-387-4742 or email dosa-inp@wmich.edu for details.
Hey y'all, what's up? This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program. So we're talking about a couple things. Yeah, well, you just mentioned like David Benak had his campaign kickoff over the weekend.
Over the weekend, it was it's the same day as the Black Arts Fest. Yeah. Shout out to the Black Arts Fest. Shout out to the Black Arts Cultural Center, Yolanda Lavender. Shout out to all of them, and shout out to their decades and years of excellence. Shout out to, everybody that was involved with that, man. The Black Arts Fest was super dope. I mean, David's running for the mayor of Kalamazoo, man. I mean, like, I like David a lot. I'm not gonna sit here and so let me get my biasness out of the way already. Like, he's an activist. He's about that life. And he has been on the front lines of issues a number of times. I like to do. I think it's good. I think that when if he says he's gonna fight for our issues, progressive issues, he's going to do so, and he doesn't take corporate PAC money or super PAC money. So
yeah, and I'll kind of say about David's race myself is I think a couple of years back, I did give a few criticisms revolving around the primary that took place in that election. But since then, I've worked with Dave on projects together, and I really respect somebody who can take criticism and be an adult about it. I have run into my fair share of organizers and people who you give them some like level criticism and they flip out. And also, any issues aside, he's definitely the best candidate running. And granted, Anderson being the opponent, that's kind of a low bar. But
shade.
I will throw shade at Anderson.
Shade.
I'm sorry.
just outright shade.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's not really a closed secret that he's probably the least popular commissioner up there on the dais.
Here's the thing. If Mr. Anderson, if you are ever feeling inclined, please come on this radio show to defend yourself.
Please. Yeah, I'm sorry. We are going to be inviting you on later in the season. So.
So I mean, I have no problem sitting down and talking to anybody about anything, but
I'll say this: if Bernie Sanders can go on Fox News, Mr. Anderson, you can come on our show.
Oh, bars.
Yeah. Ain't nearly that vicious.
Nah, yeah, man. We could be. We're not. I do. A bunch of good stuff, man. That happened over the weekend. There was also some tragedies that happened over the weekend, which we're going to get into. But the last few days has been crazy, man. Outside,
it's been a rough week for Kalamazoo, man. I'll tell you.
Yeah. Nationally, we had the thing that happened in Louisiana, which we do need to speak on. some good news. A Florida police officer that was planting drugs on people is no longer going to be a police officer.
Oh,
that's a fantastic story. Right, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That a guy that was destroying lives is no longer going to be able to destroy lives. You know, I know that I wanted to speak on the No Justice for Eric Gardner situation that's happening in New York.
That's breaking, and it's breaking mad.
Yeah.
I'm very mad about it.
Dog, I've been heated all week. Like I've been heated like for the last 2 days about that story, dog, and I mean,
I thought that just dropped today, but maybe I'm sorry.
It dropped. No, it was yesterday.
Okay.
Where if you saw the press conference of the police officer, literally say that he put Eric in a chokehold. He literally said he put him in a chokehold, and it didn't try to lie and obfuscate, saying that it was his asthma attack of him breathing, and also because Eric was much bigger than the police officer that it was justification to put him in a chokehold. Forgetting the fact that the videotape shows him getting taken down by like 4 to 5 people, and he wasn't
people with like pretty much zero provocation too. Like,
because he had the idea of selling loose cigarettes. They didn't mention the fact that he was breaking up a fight. They didn't mention the fact that he was going to the store to not only was he breaking up a fight, they didn't mention the fact that he was also trying to get something to drink. They stopped him because he was willing to sell loose cigarettes because New York has a higher tax on cigarettes. So it would make sense if you wanted to have a little side hustle to buy cigarettes in the neighboring counties, or even like in Maryland or so, like somewhere outside of New York, and then go into New York and sell cigarettes. Because like for people who have that addiction, it would probably be a quick little side hustle. But Matt Taibbi's book on Eric Gardner, I Can't Breathe, like that book is really good. I suggest people not get that book. Also, stand with the Gardner family. They're still trying to get this police officer fired, man. And they're trying to get those people disbarred. Like it's such a miscarriage of justice. It's not even about like getting him, in jail for murder. It's about why should a cop who murdered someone over selling cigarettes still be working? Yeah, your job is to protect and serve. You serve death to an unarmed man.
This is America.
Right? Like you serve death to an unarmed man because he was asking you to stop harassing him. Like his daughter died because of all the stress that you brought to the family. His daughter would not have passed away if you didn't kill her father. Like
it's really like the cycle of tragedy that happens, especially if you're a black activist in this country. Tying into like the Louisiana thing, particularly like Ferguson activists have been just turning up dead in really suspicious and mysterious ways. We also have the woman in Louisiana who was found in the back of her trunk. Did you want to talk about that specifically, Lawrence?
I want to talk about that, but I was going to talk about that after we talk about the story that just recently happened in Kalamazoo.
So at the top of the hour, I gave a shout out and I talked about the death of Shakita Lewis. She was a local organizer. She once ran for county commission. What was on the news? This is also really a tragic part of it. Was she was murdered by a man. It was some sort of domestic violence situation. I think people closer to her might know a little bit more about the context. I wanted to just go ahead. I want to play this clip. It's from again. I didn't personally know or work with Shakita, I just kind of knew her by reputation. And it is very tragic when you lose somebody in the community who puts themselves out there to organize or to run for office. Again, I'll go ahead and I'm going to let the people who are closer to her kind of speak about her rather than myself. So I'm going to go ahead and play this clip here real quick.
Hold our family together since my grandma passed away.
This is Tara Lewis Atkinson, her sister.
So now I guess it's me and Letitia's turn to take over to keep our family together. Don't nobody understand how happy my sister always been, no matter what she go through. Her ups and downs, and she always happy. She always got a smile on her face.
And she tried her hardest so everyone could be a better them and have a better life.
This is her daughter, one of her daughters.
My mom was working so hard in every aspect of her life to turn it around because she wanted us to have a better life. She wanted us to be better people. And anyone she needed, she wanted them to be better people as well, because that's just the type of person she was.
Quanda's going to be greatly missed.
This is Daisy Lipsy. She's the minister at the Fresh Fire AME Church.
Children attended church regularly. She wanted to make sure that they had a Christian upbringing, and she was seeking guidance from pastor and myself as to how to become an agent for change in her community. She wanted more than anything to represent children and the millennium age group.
Oh man, that's give me a second. All right, we're back. I needed a second to collect myself there, but
no, I mean, it is what it. Like I said, man, tragedy. All tragedy is sad, especially when you see people who do good, who are doing good in the community, who loves their community, and they're taken too soon, man. Like, it's a devastating blow. You want and you hope that more people in the community learn from the life of this great individual and want to emulate and move forward and expand upon the things that she was working on. Like, it's always difficult, but the outpouring that I saw online on my Facebook feed when the news broke that she passed, I was sad, but it warmed my heart to see so many people show so much love, because it speaks to the character of the person. It speaks to the value that the community had in that person, and she will really be missed, man. Like, real talk.
Yeah. Rest in power, and she's also, like, on a personal note, she graduated from she was a freshman when we were seniors. So we actually went to high school together. Again, we didn't hang out too much, but it always, like, feels like a punch to the gut to me when I had somebody in the community, somebody I went to school with, ends up dying either by gun violence, or in this situation it's a kind of domestic violence situation. It's really sad. It's just really profoundly sad, but in her time, it seems like she's done a lot of really good work, and I think that work will continue through her friends and family, and that last thing that the minister said, I want y'all to really carry this with you, that Minister Daisy Lipsey, what she said about how she wanted to become an agent of change. That can be any of us, anybody out there. Take that step to put yourself out there, help people in your community, help organize. I think that would probably be the best way to honor this young woman's memory. Again, rest in power.
Doc, I don't want to talk about a sad story to another sad story. We gotta break.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
I want to get to the Baton Rouge story because that's crazy, but we gotta talk about something else. Like, I have no problem talking about.
I'll tell you what. Let's do some good news. We talked about this a little earlier. Our comrades over at Kasecha got a win.
Hey.
I'll read a little bit from the article, let you know what's going on. Again, we had Nellie on the show several weeks ago when this is being pushed in the city commission. Long and the short of it, the resolution to push the state of Michigan to allow for undocumented immigrants to have driver's licenses did, in fact, pass. Woo! Yeah. That's that's the power of the grassroots organizing. There was there was some contention around language that was changed. They excised some language from the original document where Kosecha had basically penned something on behalf of undocumented people in the community that talks about they're living in the community, and it was kind of odd because like Craig, the city attorney Robinson, it almost was like he took it upon himself to try to like soften the language in the piece, and his argument was like, oh, it might appeal more to Republican legislators in Lansing, but the rest of the commission was basically nah y'all, we gotta leave like it, we gotta make it sure that this passes the way that the undocumented folks wrote it, and also a bit of language making it clear that there's some contentious around the idea of being a welcoming city versus striving to be a welcoming city, which is the striving part is that's keeping it a little bit more real.
I mean, I wouldn't say that, man. Like when you, it's like saying I want to welcome you, but hey, it's like I'm not even gonna get into that analogy. Let's just acknowledge the fact that this is a big deal. This is a win. This is a good thing. People who are undocumented getting driver's licenses so they can get back and forth to work. They can pick their kids up. They can go see family without having that extra fear on top of I can get detained or deported out of nowhere, but them feeling more safe and welcomed, and because they are our people, because immigrants are our people. So having our people feel more welcomed and more loved and more connected to the experience of average Americans is a good thing. This is what we should be doing.
Yeah, I agree. And for those who talk about or are concerned about how quote-unquote politically possible it is, I think there's a couple of important reminders. One, this was the status quo in Michigan until 2008. We used to let undocumented immigrants get driver's license in our state. Two, talking about how politically possible it is right now at this second, the legislator's full of a lot of reactionaries, but you have to remember, if you're looking at it from a more long-term perspective, we're going to have a state election coming up that is going to be unencumbered by gerrymandering. That is going to change the game in a way that frankly, I don't think. I think people have a hard time grasping just how much of a paradigm shift it's going to be once we actually have like fair districts to work with in these elections. Again, we've got a sympathetic state government, so I could see this happening in the next like 2 to 4 years. Is it going to happen immediately? Probably not, but
could it happen in 2020? Let's keep it real. Let's keep it real. There's a lot of seats, especially in the state of Michigan, that are up for grabs.
And if only they got like a candidate, if the Democratic Party got like some really inspirational candidate that could really like uplift all the down ballot candidates, I don't know who it would be. Maybe think of like maybe like a presidential candidate was like building a movement at the same time. I don't know. I'm drawing a blank. If only there was someone like that.
I mean, let's keep it real, man. Like 2018 was a warm up. You saw how many people who were Democratic socialists and people who are on the left, far left, or what people would say, winning in major ways. That was a warm up to what 2020 is supposed to be. And could we see this? Could we see more legislation that helps some of the most disenfranchised people in our community actually come to fruition? Some policies and legislation. Yeah, I'm all for that. I'm all for that smoke.
Hard agreed. Yeah. By the way, we wanted a quick shout out again for those of y'all listening. Another gracious thank you to local musicians Quantum Fleek for letting us use their music as background music. It's good, funky stuff.
Doc, I'm not gonna lie, that was some super smooth funk right there.
Oh yeah,
I ain't gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
You're probably gonna hear more of it when we go to our break.
Yeah. So actually, I think I'll do that. We're at about 6:53, so let's go ahead. We'll take a little early break. That way, we'll kind of plan and what we'll end up talking about next.
We always have like a little insider baseball. We always have like 20 or to 30 stories that we send each other. They're like, "Yo, did you see this? Yo, did you hear about this?
Yo,
like,
what's up with that?"
like Joe Biden's ad on him like debunking Medicare for all, which the internet has completely and utterly destroyed.
Oh no! No, Uncle Joe.
You have things that happen on YouTube, like Gavin McInnes pranking Majority Report and David Pakman trying to get them to go on his show. Like and then you have like international news, like what's going on in Puerto Rico and and also what's going on with Nancy Pelosi fighting with the squad, and then Donald Trump defends Nancy Pelosi. Like, it's been a crazy week since we've been on.
And also important, there's a couple stories here too that kind of fell through the cracks. There's been a lot of super high profile stuff going on at the national level, but there's some an important update about the minimum wage and paid sick leave thing that the Republicans sabotaged about a year ago.
Amazon workers striking, and also the Disney heiress going on Democracy Now! Talking about like, hey, yo, the happiest place in the world is treating their workers like garbage, and we need to stop it. Like, like there's a bunch of stuff that we need that we need to talk about.
Yeah. By the way, just like y'all listen to me at my program enough, it's not that we hate the rich, but in order for us to like you, you definitely have to at least be like a class traitor. So I would say the Disney would say heiress or relative. She would fit under that category. Let's not forget too, for all you Marxists out there, Engels, his dad was rich. Actually, Engels got his start writing a book about how awful the working conditions in his dad's factory was, and Engels was rich till the end of his life, and basically helped support his eccentric drunk friend when he was writing all these books about communism.
God, the thing that I referenced earlier, the Disney heiress, I forgot her name. She's the daughter of the co-founder of Disney. wrote an op-ed and had a whole 10-minute conversation on Democracy Now, basically saying if you cut the CEO's got a bonus of like something ridiculous, and she was saying that if you cut their paycheck in half, then there's nothing in their life that's going to radically change. Meanwhile, if you was to cut the paycheck in half of the average employee that works at Disney, or you increase their paycheck by half or by doubling it, it would lift people out of poverty. It would let people get back to school. It would stimulate the economy even more, and stop giving this false dichotomy of joy and happiness in the happiest place on the world, when the people who are working there are suffering just to create this fantasy. So it was just like, listening to that conversation gave me so much joy. It gave me so much love and joy. But again, we're going to take a break so we can talk about more of this stuff.
You know what? I think I will use up these 3 minutes to... So we were just talking about strikes and workers' rights, and I think this ties into it. I actually have an update from a story we talked about last week with the Metro bus drivers going on protest. Not on strike necessarily. They want to make sure that the buses are still running for the people that need them, but they are...
I support the protest, by the way.
Oh, yeah. So I wasn't able to get anybody on for an interview, but I was able to talk to a former bus driver they wanted to be anonymous, but they wanted to add a little bit of context right from, the words of somebody who, drove for the Metro Transit. So they talked about, the shifts. It used to be 8-hour straight shifts. Now, they talked about how the shifts can last as long as 10 hours, and if you have a particularly busy day, traffic is heavy, there are literally no breaks. The bus drivers do not have time to go eat lunch. Barely have enough time to go to the bathroom. They told me it's particularly problematic in the winter. Just the road conditions in winter are worse. It's much more difficult to keep the bus running on a regular schedule, so you do not have that time to run to the bus station and go to the bathroom or eat a snack. In fact, they even told me that many of the drivers used Depends, and some of the female bus drivers were even getting bladder infections.
Dog. Come on, son. You're gonna force you're gonna create an environment where your employees have to wear adult diapers to do a job. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding? Like, also, no. The thing that pissed me off was actually the thing that I saw in the Channel 3 coverage, that they haven't had a pay raise, or like they haven't had a significant pay raise since we were in high school. Like, and I remember the bus when we were back in high school. Like, they haven't had a pay raise in like 10 years. I think they had it was like $1 and some change, and that was like since like the 80s or something crazy. And I'm sitting there like, when we were in high school, the bus was $1. It's $1.50 now. So they raised the prices on the buses, but they can't raise the raise the wages of the employees.
No, yeah,
they can't let
crazy.
They can't let the employees, stop and use the bathroom or get some food, because God forbid one of your employees who has a bus full of people gets sleepy or something, get tired or something.
They told me like there are certain shifts or certain days where a bus driver literally couldn't eat, and if you're there for like 8-10 hours, like, honestly, that's dangerous. That's how accidents happen. That's how, because again, if your stomach is growling and you have 0 calories in your system, that's gonna like do bad things to your attention span, to your reflexes.
You're literally putting the lives of other citizens in the county in danger. Not just the men, women, and children who are on the bus, but whoever that bus hits.
Yeah, exactly.
So it is literally it is counterproductive to make sure that the people who are in charge of making sure that lives get to their destination safely are not being taken care of.
Yeah. And I did want to mention one last thing that they brought up to me after a particular contract renegotiation. We used to be able to basically give their pension to whomever. For this person, it was their daughter. And after this contract change, she could no longer do that. So, yes, it's kind of a different wheelhouse than the other complaints that we've talked about, but still, kind of taking away the autonomy of your workers from, being able to tell them where they can and can put their pension money. That's, again, just arbitrary and pretty ridiculous.
Look, we understand. We talk about this all the time. Corporations' number one concern is maximizing profits, and if you can't maximize profits by squeezing your customers, then you maximize profits by squeezing your employees, and that's really about it. Like, this is gross on a number of levels because people could literally die.
Yeah, definitely. So let's go ahead. We're actually going to go to break and come back. Oh man, we got buttloads of stuff to talk about. We got butts to talk about.
We have a plethora of stories that we can speak on.
The rest of this program will be guest hosted by Sir Mix-a-Lot. Anyway, all right. Okay. We're serious. Let's go to break. Y'all listening to the Hoodrat Strategist radio program only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo, your only source for political revolution.
Hi, this is Fred Snyder of the B-52s and the Superions, who were formerly the Del Morons. And every time I'm in Kalamazoo, I tune into WIDR.
For those interested in
underground hip-hop,
here is a complete disc jockey show with all the modern pace of today's exciting radio.
Listen here on
Saturday night
from 7 to 10.
You can't go wrong.
There's one important element missing, however. That's you.
hip-hop epic show.
Saturday night.
I mean, DJs bring them young, play that real live shit. The hip-hop epic show.
I know you're gonna dig it.
Yo, I'm talking about
The hip-hop epic show. The DJ bring them young.
transmitting live.
Saturday night.
WIDR Kalamazoo.
bouncing.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by.
All right, we're back.
Oh, God.
This is America. I'm sorry, Hoodrat. This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, which happens to take place in America.
Yeah.
So we were just talking about Medicare for all. And
Don't get you slipping. Don't get you slipping.
It's like, how do we make people not like literally the most popular policy proposal in the country? That's the thinking that a lot of establishment Democrats are really fixated on right now.
One in particular is Vice President Joe Biden, who put out an ad over the last few weeks, basically doing what he does best, which is say a noun and a verb and bring up President Obama. So throughout the ad, he said he does nothing but placates and downplays the benefits of Medicare for all, and he literally uses Republican talking points, as in Republicans have been trying to destroy Obamacare. That's the next logical step to getting people covered. That is, it's going to cost too much. That the average American is going to have to pay. The middle America is going to pay too much in taxes to have it. It's right-wing talking point after right-wing talking point. Doesn't bring up the fact that as of right now, we have what was it? Since President Trump has been in office, 7 to 11 million Americans have lost their health insurance.
Making it great again, folks.
That when you were vice president, and your plan is to put in a public option, y'all killed it. Y'all killed the public option when you were implementing the Affordable Care Act. Also, on top of the fact that with Medicare for All, you're not paying premiums, copays, or deductibles. It's free to the point of service. If you look at Pramila Jayapal's plan or Bernie's plan in the Senate, on top of the fact that it would save Americans more money in the long run. So he's using the talking point of people who want Medicare for all are trying to destroy Obamacare, when literally no plan that has actually been out that's came out about Medicare for all destroys Obamacare. It does not get rid of the. It does not. It
like there's a transition. Like it's such a like bad faith argument. So, it's BS.
the other thing that makes me angry. The other thing that made me angry about that ad, that made me want to pull out my hair, was the idea that Joe Biden cares so much. He's such a fighter for the average American that he's so right for the Democratic Party when he's going against the will of the base of the party, because over 80% of your base wants Medicare for all.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Like it pissed me off because it was everything that made me upset about Hillary Clinton's run in 2016. You're trying to triangulate this middle ground position when the last polling that just came out, Pew Research polling, 54% of Republicans agree with Medicare for all, a government-run program, a government-run healthcare program. 54% of Republicans agree with it.
Yeah.
And even a higher percent of independents. So it's like you're literally fighting against the overwhelming majority of the American people on a policy that keeps the problem of Obamacare intact.
Exactly. Like, oh man. Yeah, it is pretty ridiculous, and I think it's just another example of what just happened over the weekend with Trump. Whenever people are looking too hard at his how awful he is, he'll just do something even more awful to like this. He'll do this whole like WWE heel turn, and he said a bunch of racist gobbledygook about the quote unquote the squad, which is
it's an offensive term.
It refers to the 4 women of color DSA Congress people who
Justice Democrats, the 4 Justice Democrats that got elected, that Nancy Pelosi also attacks, and Donald Trump defended Nancy Pelosi against Alexander Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and Ayanna Pressley. And honestly, out of those 4, I loved Ayanna Presley's response in the press conference because she was also clapping back at Nancy Pelosi. In very not so subtle ways. If you notice what she was saying, and I don't like the term "the squad," because when she says our squad is bigger, she wasn't just talking about Trump. That was also a shot at Nancy because Nancy's saying, "Oh, they have their Twitter or whatever in their squad and there's only 4 of them," and she's like, "Nah, dog, we got the people."
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing. It's like you're in here because you're good at facilitating donations. We're in here because the people mobilized and voted us in because we stand by their working class interests.
We represent the people, and the people funks with us because of it. So it's like, I don't think they understand the severity of their situation. You're not stuck in Congress with them. They're not stuck in Congress with you. You're stuck in Congress with them.
Yes.
And more are coming.
As AOC quoted Rorschach, it's still very, very pertinent. So I'm going to play a quick clip from this. I'm going to have to give this one to Rashida because
Detroit, Michigan.
Yeah, and I want to play a little bit of what she said. This is her response to the orange President Jack-o'-lanterns a-hole tweets. So.
Thank you to my sisters in service. Thank you all so much for being here. As we all know, the recent tweets and words from the president are simply a continuation of his racist and xenophobic playbook. We cannot allow these hateful actions by the president to distract us from the critical work to hold this administration accountable to the inhumane conditions at the border that is separating children from their loved ones and caging them up in illegal, horrific conditions. I represent the 3rd poorest congressional district in this country, one that is made up of working people who have been targeted by this administration, and their actions and words are hurting them today. I was elected to fight for them, fight for the 13th congressional district. They sent me here to Congress to fight back against the corporate assault and the corruption in our country. This means supporting an impeachment inquiry of this president and his actions by the administration and his appointees. Sadly, this is not the first, nor will it be the last time we hear disgusting, bigoted language from the president. We know this is who he is, and we know that he and his administration are constantly engaged in actions that harm residents and American people in our country. Many members of Congress have called for his impeachment because of his utter disregard and disrespect of the United States Constitution. And despite this and other many attempts to distract us, I remain focused. We remain focused on holding him accountable to the laws of this land and accountable to the American people. I urge House leadership, many of my colleagues, to take action to impeach this lawless president today.
Congress members Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley.
Yep. So again, that was Rashida. If you want to see the full comments, I pulled that from a clip from yesterday's Democracy Now! Episode, and they kind of go into a bit more detail about it all too. So,
one thing that I want to say before we move on is that I love how all of them in each one of their speeches basically said, okay, Trump's a racist and a bigot. He's going to say more racist and bigoted stuff. This is nothing new. This is the things that we are fighting for, though. Let me use this time to talk about things that we're fighting for. Kids are sleeping on the concrete with metal blankets. This president has broken the Emoluments Clause Act. He has broken multiple obstruction of justice laws. He needs to be impeached. We need to fight for systematic change of our country, and a racist person saying racist stuff is nothing new. And in each one of their speeches, they gave out the policy of what they're fighting for, and I think that's the reason why Nancy Pelosi hates them so much, because they consistently, in every way, shape, or form, if it's going through the mainstream media, which a lot of the mainstream media does not like them, or them going to their voters directly on Twitter and basically saying, yo, this is what we're talking about, this is what I'm fighting for, this is what's going, they're getting the feedback immediately from their constituents, and they're fighting for their constituents, and that's what makes Pelosi mad, because Pelosi is used to the media kissing up to them and them bending the media to their will, and not being and also their colleagues backing down to whenever the Republicans throw shade at them.
Well, yeah, and I think too is being able to have this platform to answer back, clap back at Trump with actual policy fixes and ideas that grew out of grassroots movements. That pisses off the Nancy Pelosi's of the world to no end, because that's not part of the playbook. The playbook is you're supposed to respond to Trump's racist demagoguery with comfy sloganeering. This is not who we are. Love Trump's hate. America is already great. Buy it on our t-shirts and donate to the DNC today.
Yeah, it's pure capitulation, because while at the same time they're literally fighting and going to visit the kids in the detention centers, Nancy Pelosi is doing backroom deals and funding border patrol and giving more funding to the ICE facilities. Not changing the fact that that there are kids and parents being separated and men and women are being held and being told to drink out of toilets. Mm-hmm. They're not changing that. They're just changing the fact that some of them may get a toothbrush once in a while. Yeah, and that is upsetting.
I know I mentioned this last week, but really just keep in mind, on the very same day that AOC and Ayanna Pressley were literally risking their personal safety to go inspect these ICE facilities, Nancy was haggling with the Trump administration about and the GOP in Congress, saying, you know what? If there's a death in ICE custody, you have to let us know in a timely manner.
Yeah. So yeah, the person that's in a cage may get a shower once a week instead of once every 3 weeks. We're not concerned about the fact that that person's in a cage.
Yeah, exactly. All
right. Wait. There was another story that we both wanted to speak on.
Oh yes, are we taking it back down to Michigan?
Oh yeah, we're back in Michigan.
All right, so this is a follow-up to a story we talked about last fall. There's been some movement on it, and this is published just earlier today. It's on MLive, written by Lauren Gibbons, and we'll talk a little bit about the context of it. Michigan Supreme Court hears arguments on adopt and amend tactic that change minimum wage, paid sick time laws. So let's go ahead and sum up what happened. So the state legislature's so-called adopt and amend strategy that resulted in significant changes to citizen-led minimum wage and paid sick time policies last session was a quote-unquote slap in the face to Michigan residents. Solicitor General Fadwa Hamond argued during a Wednesday Michigan Supreme Court hearing on the maneuver's constitutionality. At issues are the action the legislature took last session on two ballot initiatives that would have originally brought brought tipped employees into the regular minimum wage rules and raised minimum wage to $12 by 2022, and let workers earn 1 hour of paid sick time for every 30 hours worked. Instead of letting those proposals go to the ballot in November 2018, where they would have probably won, all of the other progressive ballot initiatives won by a virtual landslide, the legislature adopted them with the intent to change them later on, and in December, then Governor Rick Snyder signed into law major changes to the original language. Facing ongoing pushback from legislative Democrats and backers of the original initiatives, House and Senate Republicans asked the Supreme Court to issue an advisory opinion on the matter in February in an effort to circumvent a lengthy legal fight. On Wednesday, the Attorney General's office argued both sides of the matter, with Hammoud making the case that the tactic was unconstitutional, while Deputy Solicitor General Eric Rusticia argued it was. Hammoud told the court the adopt and amend strategy would create a permanent escape route for the legislature to get around people's initiative power if upheld, and said the legislature used the process to thwart the people's will. And John Bursch, who represented the legislative majority in court, said the court can and should issue an advisory opinion on the subject. He noted there's nothing in the Constitution that says the legislature can't adopt an initiative and amend it later on, and said people who concerned have three remedies: referendum, the legislature's decision, amend the Constitution to put additional limits on the legislative process, or vote out the lawmakers. And just describing a little bit more what these ballot initiatives actually were before they were neutered by the Michigan GOP legislature. The minimum wage requirement adopted by the legislature leaves tipped workers separate and raises the general minimum wage to $12.05 by 2030, a far longer time horizon than was originally proposed. Tipped workers will be at least 38% of the regular minimum wage and make a minimum of $4.58 per hour by 2030. The new paid sick leave requirement applies only to businesses with 50 or more employees. Workers will earn 1 hour of sick time for every 35 hours worked instead of 30 hours under the original proposal, and could accrue 40 hours of paid sick leave. Under the original proposal, workers could have earned 72 hours per year of paid sick time if they worked at larger businesses, or 40 hours per year if they worked at small businesses with under 10 employees. Danielle Atkinson, chair of the MI Time to Care, the group that led the ballot effort for changing Michigan's paid sick time laws, said after the hearing that the group is keeping their options open, adding they're prepared to put the issue back on the ballot if there are other legal options or work with the legislature.
So, to editorialize real quick, it was basically the GOP saying, hey, we know that that Michiganders, that our people wanted, you wanted your wages to be lifted. You wanted more pay. We're gonna do everything in our power to stop that from happening. So yeah, that is garbage. That is garbage on a number of levels. When we've talked about on this show more times than I can count, that wages have been stagnant since the 1960s. The average minimum wage of the average American in America makes less than $30,000 a year, and a majority of those people that make less than $30,000 a year are single mothers and people of color. So it is literally asinine. It is detrimental to the lives of people in Michigan to do all of this shady pipe work to keep people at starvation wages. It's making sure that we keep the desperate more, we keep them at being desperate.
We keep them being desperate. We keep them being desperate, and it really does show the butt, particularly of the Michigan GOP that we got up there in Lansing, that they feel it is just so important to protect business interests over their survivability of working class people. They will give lip service every 2 years when they run for office and claim to represent, when honestly, when the actual truth is they are doing whatever possible to outmaneuver any kind of citizens' initiative to get some basic and fundamental rights.
It's not surprising. Nestle's draining our Great Lakes for pennies on the dollar, and we have cities that don't have clean drinking water. But because Nestle's making a buck off of it, you know, the GOP doesn't care. Our Michigan representatives are like, hey, you know, it's more profitable for the business than the lives of the people who are around. We literally have cities becoming ghost towns because people are moving because they are unable to stay there. They're unable to pay rent, buy groceries. They're unable to maintain a savings because they are unable to, or they're working through 2 to 3 jobs just to make ends meet. Yeah, this is not a stable way of living. It's not a stable way of keeping people in a functioning society. It's detrimental to the lives of everybody who's involved.
Yeah, I mean, you put that pretty much perfectly there, Lawrence. So, you know what I think we'll do? I don't have a whole lot else to say on that topic. So I think what we'll do, we'll go to break, and then we've got some other stuff, of course, we need to talk about on the program. Y'all listening to the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo, your only source for political revolution.
This is Andrew Holiday from Dead Eyes Always Dreaming, and you are listening to 89.1 Wider FM Kalamazoo.
Depression can take many forms. It can feel like static in your brain, or as if everything around you has lost meaning. It can debilitate even the strongest of people. 89.1 WIDR is here to tell you that there is help and a way to improve mental health. WMU offers counseling for all students in the greater Kalamazoo community at Synecu's Health Center. There is no need for an appointment for first-time visits. Open counseling times are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Friday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. or Thursday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Synecu's is located at 1903 West Michigan Avenue, Kalamazoo. For more information, please call 269-387-3287 or visit www.wmich.edu/health center.
We are back. This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo. Want to thank again co-host Lawrence for coming on the program, dropping some of those hot, fresh, hot, ready truths Yeah, I'm not exactly sure where I was going with that. Please don't sue us, Little Caesar, whoever you are. Anyway, let's go ahead. Let's get back on some good news here. This is at the state level. This is one of our dear representatives here from Kalamazoo, who's in the Trump administration at the moment. This is an article from Politico. Headline: Betsy DeVos sued over student loan forgiveness program that denies 99% of its applicants. Ooh. It's written by Michael Stratford, published on the 11th of this July. One of the nation's largest teachers' unions filed suit Thursday against Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, accusing her agency of mismanaging a major program intended to provide student loan forgiveness to public service workers. The American Federation of Teachers claims the Education Department has improperly rejected the applications of teachers seeking public service loan forgiveness and violated their constitutional right to due process. AFT President Randy Weingarten and 8 student loan borrowers who are teachers or work in public service jobs are named as plaintiffs in the suit, which was filed in federal court in Washington, D.C. The Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, which was passed by Congress in 2007, was designed to allow student loan borrowers who work in public service jobs to have their loans discharged after they make 10 years of payments. But relatively few borrowers have been able to obtain the benefit in recent years, as the Education Department has rejected roughly 99% of applications. That's left tens of thousands of frustrated borrowers with student loans they thought would be forgiven after they worked a decade on the job. The department has said that the applications are being rejected because borrowers have not met the eligibility requirements of the program. The AFT's lawsuit accuses the Trump administration of arbitrarily and capriciously rejecting loan forgiveness applications, failing to properly oversee the loan services it hires to administer the program, and denying borrowers the loan forgiveness benefit without due process. Instead of helping the millions of Americans owed debt relief under the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, DeVos has hurt and pauperized them, Weingarten said in a statement. And instead of working with lawmakers to improve the program that millions of teachers, firefighters, nurses, and first responders deserve, DeVos has vandalized it. Education Department spokesman Liz Hill said in an email that the department doesn't comment on pending litigation, but added that the agency is faithfully administrating the complex program Congress passed. Oh, I'm sure they are. Screw the poor. That's what a complex program that is. Anyway. DeVos has previously said that Congress, not the Education Department, has caused some of the problems by creating a complicated set of restrictions on which types of loans and loan repayment plans are eligible for public service loan forgiveness. The Education Department in December created an online tool that was meant to help borrowers better understand whether they qualify for the program. The AFT's complaint asks the judge to approve the applications of the named borrowers in the case. It also seeks a court order requiring the Education Department to implement a better process to handle the program and forcing the agency to provide written and reasoned decisions supporting its determinations on loan forgiveness applications. And again, you want to read that article, it's over at Politico. DeVos sued over student loan forgiveness program that denies 99% of its applicants. I wonder if that's deliberate, because that really hits the nail on the head. Oh, you're denying benefits, you're denying economic solvency to 99%. Where I've heard this before somewhere. I cannot think of where this was. No, obviously I was talking about the kind of impetus and demands around Occupy. For the spoiler alert, those who couldn't connect the dots on that one. So, I think with that, I'm going to go ahead. We might close up shop a little early on the show. There were a few other things, but nothing super pressing under the rubric. And I will, in complete transparency's sake, I do got a meeting coming up. I want to make sure that I am dutifully on time for. I will give a shout out. Our old co-host Nora forwarded us an article. I'd recommend y'all check it out. It's called "The Reality of Being Homeless." It's over at poeticpainsite.wordpress.com, and it's the experiences of Chicago organizer activists dealing with homelessness. Also, did want to kind of expand on the paid sick leave article that we were talking about earlier. It was, in fact, Attorney General Dana Nessel who was going to make those arguments. So if you can actually look them up and find them. With that, let's go ahead and dive into the activist calendar. What is coming up this week that you should check out to be a real social justice warrior, as it were. Anyway, upcoming events. Over at up in Grand Rapids, tomorrow at 6 p.m. at the Creston Brewery is a benefit for Grand Rapids Rapid Response to ICE. The money that will be raised will be given to Rapid Response of Grand Rapids so they can help coordinate and organize during ICE raids. On Friday at 5:30 p.m., it's going to be community conversations with Tracy Hall over at This Is a Bookstore, currently. And that's, again, Tracy Hall is, excuse me, currently on the county board, and she's running for state rep. Excuse me. Also coming up later in the week, there's a community organizing class over at Out Front Kalamazoo. That is Sunday from 1 p.m. to 4. On Monday, July 22nd, there's going to be a community forum with Representative John Holdley and Senator McCann. And it's going to be a community forum on the state budget that will take place from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. over at the Lawrence Education Center. And then 1 week from today, going on around the same time as this radio show. But again, you can always listen to us online after the fact. Just FYI. On Wednesday, Kalamazoo Nonviolent Opponents of War is hosting a discussion on the Mueller report, and that is going to be at 7 p.m. over at the Central City Tap House. So I actually want to end this program with a very tangible and important issue. And I wanted to get some information out there. We are expecting a really intense heat wave this weekend. I wanted to let you know where you can find some cooling centers and some places to help you stay cool. So... first of all, as to my knowledge, hold on. I'll go ahead and read off first. There are going to be, the city is opening some fire hydrants around the neighborhoods. This is basically people can go out in the streets, play in the water, stay cool, get hydrated, make sure that they are actually not gonna get their health impacted by heat stroke. So locations for those in the Edison neighborhood, where you can party under a spray and hydrant. Washington Avenue and March Street, Clarence Street and Jackson Street, Hayes Park Avenue and March Street. This is at the intersection of all these streets here. Hayes Park Avenue and James Street. In the East Side neighborhood, you can find open hydrants at Charlotte Avenue and Sherwood Avenue at Roosevelt Apartments, and Fairbanks Avenue and Center Street. In the North Side neighborhood, you can find it over at 1038 Interfaith Boulevard, Burrell Avenue and Lawrence Street, Crom Street and East Clay Street, Norway Avenue and Princeton Avenue, and North Church Street and Norway Avenue. They also said community members are advised not to open hydrants at other sites because it can hamper crews during an actual fire. And then I wanted to also let you know there will be some cooling centers open during the day. And the information I have about that, starting tomorrow, the American Red Cross of Kalamazoo, that's at 5640 Venture Courts, Douglas Community Center from at least noon to 5 p.m. The Kalamazoo First Congregational UCC, that is the church downtown, will be doing from noon to 8 p.m. And there will be updates. You can. I'm hoping there will be other cooling centers popping up around town. They're kind of concentrated right now on the north side and central downtown. We definitely need some, particularly in the Edison neighborhood and the east side. There are open hydrants, but again, it's much more difficult for particularly older residents to utilize those, and for low-income older residents, it is a cooling center is a much more viable option and a very necessary one because elderly folks can and do die in this heat. If you know people in these neighborhoods that don't traditionally have air conditioning, find them a cooling center or just find them an open public place. The libraries are going to be open and will be available for people to stay in during the worst of the heat wave. Washington Square Library comes up in particular as far as, and there are branches in all of the main neighborhoods, including the low-income ones. Community members are also encouraged to call United Way's 211 line for cooling center updates, and you can also call Kalamazoo Public Safety's 311 line to find out about any other potential cooling centers as we get into the weekend. So please, everybody, stay cool. This is it's a very dangerous heat wave we have coming up. If you got people in your life who don't have AC, please point them in the right direction. So I think that's going to go ahead and be it for our show. Y'all have been listening to the Hoodrat Strategist radio program. Again, you can find all of our episodes streaming online at our YouTube page, and you can check our Facebook page, follow that for updates, including new episodes as they are published. Until next time, keep on fighting for that revolution solution.